entertaining and informative presentation. And I welcome, the next item is a very quick one. My mayor's trip overseas, which we can just receive. Some of you. Eh? Okay, well, if you look at the open agenda, you can read the bloody thing. Eh? Any questions then? Councillor Walker.
I've got a few questions that follow on for the trip, and I commend you on the trip. The first question just goes to improving our international relations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that we have any sister city relationships or the like with anywhere in India. Now, it strikes me that Bengaluru, I don't know whether that's the right pronunciation, might be a goer, and it strikes me you've already...
over on the coast.
No, please, you know what I mean. So I just put to you that those sorts of things be considered, and further to that, the need for us to improve our international relations generally, because we're now down to, I think, just one person, and our relationships with other cities are at an all-time low, and consequently the opportunity for exchanging information alike. So I just have a question mark around that. And then the other thing that you also mentioned is around the trade with India, which is very low, but also worrisomely our exposure to trade with China. And I just have a general question around the exposure of our city to circumstances in China.
I'll have a go at those. Bengaluru is a city with...
Bengaluru,
which used to be called Bangalore, but it's changed. And Raycon are there as a leading thing, and they also have a thing called CCAMP, which I mentioned in there, which is a golden opportunity for us to reverse our very poor performance as a city in the Innovation Centre, which most Councillor Darby and I noted in a recent discussion. And we're very poor in that, but that's a classic case of where they've offered a helping hand, and I am taking some leadership role across our innovation sector, which is not an innovation ecology, it's a whole lot of shambles of individuals who don't talk to each other, including Tātaki. We need to do something about that. In terms of our trade with China, interestingly enough, we do have I spoke at a sister city thing with our relationship with Guangzhou, and there's been a 6.5% increase in New Zealand's trade with the Guangzhou area this year, which is in fact 80% of the increase in our improved trade deficit came just from that one area. So we are reliant on China. I don't know how exposed we are to anything else happening up there, but it's important. But I'd like to improve it with India. And the other thing I found at my own expense in France was the true cost of a new surface light rail was $53 million per kilometre, New Zealand dollars, brand new. And the Auckland light rail consideration for their surface rail is $375 million per kilometre, or 7 times more. So you wonder what they're talking about. And the one of going under the ground is 14 times as much as this. And so it was an eye-opener to me. I like things done cheaply. And these are quality things that you can see from the pictures. They look bloody good and everyone uses them. But that's enough. If you want to have more of it, you can buy me a beer in the meantime. Hey?
Can I speak?
Yes, please do.
Morris isn't going to be happy with me for prolonging this. I wanted to say, if I might, that I would welcome us having a conversation about this space. The reality in the last 13 years is that we've been through periods of enthusiasm for international relationships and recognising that there may be a value in terms of knowledge exchange, cultural exchange, trade opportunities and such like. And at other times we have chosen not to have that view. And the fact is that we're down to, as Councillor Walker says, one person who operates in this space, principally occupying their time with a bit of hospitality, a little bit of kind of civic response to for people coming into the city. There hasn't been a political appetite for people to travel. I understand the political sensitivity of that, but we are New Zealand's leading city, and I think it's important that we have a conversation about what that translates into in terms of our support for this space, and that frankly we provide a bit of cover for elected members who carry the torch into this space with overseas travel and suffer some criticism invariably for the expenditure related to it. So perhaps not a full answer, but I would welcome an opportunity to discuss this, because you cannot sustain meaningful relationships by being in one year and out the next.
I just make the
because I noticed
observation.
we have a particularly pinch-nostriled approach to this. You kindly funded my trip to India, but had I just gone there, I didn't get a trip. I had to fund myself back, which is pretty chiselling, actually. We are and I don't fly to Wellington. I don't. Eh? What's that?
We were quite keen for you to stay longer.
Well, there was a message. If I stayed there, I'd be earning a shitload more money than coming back here to do this. All right. I have two questions. Councillor Henderson and Councillor Filipaina and Councillor Fletcher. No, it wasn't you. Okay. Mistake. It was Councillor Hills. She's got a wobbly finger.
Sorry, Chair, Mayor. Just a big comment, and you started talking about it a little bit, but I see that fantastic tram covered in rainbows. Could you please tell me a little bit more about the benefits you saw there and what they, not necessarily compared to what's proposed here, but what did you see the benefits of movement capacity and the use of that type of transport?
Okay, well, I go everywhere with an open mind, and I went and looked in Sydney as well. And then I ask myself, when I see large government projects, what problem are you solving? And the main problem that they've been solving with the tunnels underneath the harbour and everything is the problem of getting re-elected. It had nothing whatsoever to do with transport. In this case here, it's a city the size of Christchurch, but both in Sydney and in the city of Angers, the uptake was immediate, and it's all day long. It's not particularly built around computer traffic into the city and out. You hear a lot of times from the various lobbies that something like 80% of our journeys in New Zealand are under 3 kilometres. That's the journeys that this is fixing, both in Sydney and there, because it's just so convenient. People can see it, it's regular, it's easy to get on, the disabled love it, just roll on and off, and people are just using it all day long. That's the thing. It's not. The other part about it is that $53 million also covered shifting pipes out of the road underneath. It wasn't just a brand new thing. They have, the picture there shows it on a wide street, but they go down narrow streets where they only put down one way, and they have it so that you can go down one way and it waits and the other guy comes up, so they don't have collisions or anything. And the main trunk here only has one track. They just don't have them going towards each other, they have them off sides and things. So it was something that the people there completely, immediately took up in big ways. And the the drivers of the expensive one are supposedly expecting them to build multi-storey apartments and God knows it everywhere. Whereas these things are just making slightly denser all the way around the place and not wrecking the city's charm. So there was a lot to learn from that, and I learnt that for nothing.
Thank
For
you.
you guys. The next question was from Councillor Alf Wapona.
Thank you, Chair. And it's not a question to you. It's more of a comment in regards to the CEO. Is that okay? Phil, I have been around the table with several of the councillors who are here. I look forward to the conversation around travel, the relationships that we do have currently with other countries, because you have been here from the beginning and heard some of the comments that were made previously. So I look forward to it because, look, I think you're right, and as a result of also the chair's comments, they need to be at least not from a let's do it online, but a physical presence. So I look forward to that conversation. Kilda. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fletcher, please.
Thank you. I want to also address the challenge that was put to us by the CEO, and that is, I do think we need to have a sense of strategic objective as to what we're trying to do with those international relations. I think in 2010 it was rather difficult because each of the legacy councils came with a long list of sister city relationships, and it was a bit of a mess. But the reality is, if you go back to some of those core relationships, the investment that they have brought into Auckland is extraordinary, and they didn't rely on foreign affairs. If you look at the launch in 1999 of Study Auckland, if you think of the education dollars that came from that, and that had nothing to do with central government, nothing to do with Tourism New Zealand, nothing to do with foreign affairs, that was us using our nation state, if you like, capability to generate economic investment coming into Auckland in a really cost-effective way. And I could list a number of other similar examples, but I think that is one that's still in the headlights for us now of what we're trying to get going again post-COVID. But that requires some really strategic thinking. It requires some prioritisation, and not just because we've been friends with these people a while, we're going to keep going. I think we've got to be quite mercenary in looking at where the dollars will flow on from that investment. So I do applaud the CEO for raising this. It has annoyed me for a long time. The Mayor scored a few brownie points for me when he finally acknowledged in a more fulsome way the Consular Corps and other members who give their time, in most cases voluntarily, in Auckland to build up these relationships. I thought that was really good. The question I have for the Mayor, having just recently myself self-funded some interesting little expeditions, including light rail and meeting with Arup in London and looking at other bits and bobs, what was the governance structure that allowed for that little bit of light rail that has been so successful and was done in the most cost-effective way? Because I think if what happens is we're so busy falling over ourselves to make it better than whatever, and the business case has got to be this, that we end up stacking cost after cost after cost on, rather than actually, again, looking with strategic eyes on what we're seeking to achieve. So I'm interested in your visit, obviously, to see what was successful for you in the usage of that light rail, but what was the governance that allowed it to actually take place?
Good question. Actually, there's a whole 14-page brochure which I've copied and handed off to the heads of AT and others as well, and ALR, and I'll make sure there's a copy available to any councillors who wish to see it. And it covers the length of time it took to make the decision, which, like most places, is longer than the time to build it. It showed that they did shift pipes from underneath. It wasn't just an easy run. And it showed that a third of the price was paid from the central government and 2/3 from the regional government, because the city of Angers has a region around it, a bit like this city does. The cities in France have a bit more individual power than what Auckland Council does, so that what we're trying to get from the government is not unusual. In fact, one of the reasons it kicked me off to go to France was that my equivalent, the president of the Paris region, he would be called a mayor of the Paris region, but the president of the Paris region is my equivalent, called on me earlier this year and discovered that I could speak a bit of French, and I chatted on about having family relationships down there near Angers, and I wrote to the mayor of Angers, who welcomed me, and I just went and visited the family petit chateau, and I even got myself on the front page of the Le Courrier de l'Ouest, with 650,000 copies sold a day, and so it's quite entertaining, really. But it all came out of someone wandering into my office, and the only benefit I personally got was I got a free ticket to watch the All Blacks lose the first test, which was a mixed bag, really, I have to say. And that's it. Let's get on with things that are more important.
So, Your
Thank you all the
Worship,
same.
do you have an appetite for picking up the challenge that the CEO has given us, that we actually give that consideration in terms of going forward? I'm not saying we do it or not.
No, I think it's a discussion that the council should make. I didn't want to make that myself because everyone says, oh, gee, you're trying to get free trips, but I'm certainly not doing that at all. In fact, I more than covered most of the cost of that. But I think that the CEO is right to do that, and I think that perhaps councillors could just let him quietly know their views on this rather than a public debate. And then if it's positive, we'll have a public debate. But we live in such chiselling times.
Thanks.
And I'm well aware of how bad it would look if I actually got a free lunch one day somewhere. So I will actually take the risk of receiving my report. Well, that's very good indeed. I'm appealing to the extreme right. All those in favour, please say aye. Thank you very much. Now we'll get on.